So, welcome back to the Open Discourse podcast. I forget what episode this is. I think 5.
Yeah, this is 5.
Um,
We're really making our way in the world.
yep. Uh, we have our regular hosts. That's me, David,
And
and James
me,
J.
Jay. What's up? And we are joined this week also by my older sister,
Hey y'all, I'm May. What's up?
May.
Okay.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Aliases.
So, I think last time went pretty well. I think we're going to change up the format just a little bit. We're not going to adhere so strictly to moving through list items because I think that sort of
Nope.
held us back a little bit. So I think what we're going to do, what we're going to try tonight, whatever, is we're going to do our usual free discussion type bit where you just sort of you get on your little soapbox, talk into your microphone, and we sort of go back and forth. We'll have a very brief current events recap, just stuff that's happened that we think is noteworthy, stuff that's about to happen that we think is noteworthy, and then I think maybe we can stick to just one topic out of the list picked at our discretion.
Okay.
Because I think with 3 people, the conversation flows in a bit more of a natural way where we don't really need to just sort of move on to the next item when we run out. Of course, if we run out of stuff to say, that's what we'll do, but I'm not going to enforce it, really.
Yeah.
I don't feel the need to this time, so...
So do we want to do the start off like each of us throwing out ideas or something? The soapbox?
Yeah, that's how we always start off. So if you got, I'm sure you got something, go ahead.
So May previously has always been a very like loose idea of really anything anyone's been grinding on.
You got
recently.
something that's been burdening
Crazy.
up your brain space. You go ahead and unload it on the rest of us, and we sort of discuss it for a little bit and go around. Everybody says a little bit.
And it all pretty much devolves into just a stream of conversation at some point. But this is like a good starting jumping off point.
It gets the conversation going. It
gets those hot juices flowing.
I was gonna say it warms up your brain, because if you're anything like me, after a whole day at work, your brain is kind of just non-existent.
Sounds good.
So, do either of you have anything you'd like to go on about for a bit?
So like last week I was talking about, was that the one where I talk about like how and what way you like approach people who
this
don't want to be like politically confrontational to?
This was how to be confrontational without being aggressive type thing, because you were worried about your friend who you said possessed legitimately hateful ideas and notions, and at first we were like, yeah, you have to be delicate and you don't want to put them on the defensive, and then you sort of sussed out more details, and that this guy was like kind of in favor of actual hate crime and murder.
And we were like, at that point we're just like, oh Jesus, we didn't know that's what it was.
Well, I was kind of having that reaction too. We were like, yeah, there's a line, and that sort of crosses it to the point where I think you get a bit more of a free pass to be aggressive confrontational as opposed to sort of non-aggressive.
Wait, are you talking about Trump?
No, a person a person in my own personal life.
Okay.
Who has like differing it's almost too flattering. I think it's very hazardous.
I was going to say differing is
belief
a very
structure and worldview, but I don't know how to, or I do not actively want to start a discussion about it.
I was going to say,
do we know this person?
Differing is a pretty tame way to put it.
Yeah, it's almost like trivializing it, because I think it's big and I think it's a problem.
Well, I mean, you said this guy, and I'm maybe misremembering, but I'm pretty sure you said this guy was saying like he wanted apartheid to happen again, and like something about
he had watched a documentary about apartheid. Yeah, he's like, unemployment rates during apartheid were better, and I'm like, well, yeah, because they didn't consider black people, so they can't be unemployed because they're they're grass or something, and you don't employ plants. And he's just got a real bad case of trains run on time, you know.
Jeez.
Yeah. So anyway, what does that have to do with what you wanted to say now?
I'm just still dealing with that. I'm just like everything's. This is me, and this like my running character on this show, as I've described myself as a political apathetic at like different points. I really can't be fucked ever to deal with this stuff. You see, like every day, it's like new things in the news. You're like, oh, Trump elected to the Attorney General a literal grilled cheese sandwich.
We're getting some echo.
I'm getting feedback.
Yeah, I think that's coming from May's end. All right, I think we're good again.
Yeah. We're good. Sorry, man.
Super high production value.
You tried to come join me and like hang out, but we don't really have much of a studio, and it turned into feedback.
Yeah.
Just kidding. Sorry.
Fair enough. I mean,
Sorry.
This is sort of a basement operation anyway, so.
Yeah, it's really.
And I've really been slacking off on my end of the deal, so.
Yeah. It's like Donald Trump elects to his cabinet like the minister of food or something is Ronald McDonald, and you're like, that's not right. He doesn't know what fruits and vegetables are. And it just seems like a really counterintuitive move. Everyone's freaking out. I think it was the lady who's like going to be Secretary of Education wants to have child labor come back, and that's kind of fucked. But
yeah.
Oh man, this is getting back to like when the fucking grabbing the pussy thing came out. I had people saying like, this is it, this is gonna break it. And I'm like, I don't think so. I don't know what's the breaking point on any of this. Like, is there a breaking point? Like, how far is all of this going to go? And I'm already exhausted by it. And me just as this weird spectator, this like observer, like there's nothing I'm doing that's exhausting. I'm just disaffected, I think is the better word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can kind of relate to that. I was actually gonna bring that up sort of for my bit, was how I've been sort of throwing myself head first into like news and current events, and I'm starting to become a little jaded and apathetic. And it's a little distressing to sort of take a step back and realize that you're kind of going, oh, fuck it, fuck everyone, fuck this, like, doesn't matter, we're all gonna die, like, all that kind of crap.
Yeah, very nihilistic, very...
Just like, it's all ridiculous, who cares?
Having given up.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a Keynesian outlook on it.
And I would like to, I would like to think, like, I'm not, that, like, this all doesn't mean I'm just going to, like, sit back and, let the new dark era, like, wash over everything, I guess. Like, I want to, fight it where it got to be fought. I think, like, I don't know, like, how to do that, though, or, like, it just seems like all of the media buzz, the social media buzz, all of this, like, constant, like, article slinging is...
Well,
like, it's
part
definitely
of the problem,
it's not the hill I want to die on, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, part of the problem is it's sort of an issue that's kind of embedded in like a 24-hour media cycle, be it social media or broadcast media or internet media, where it's just there's no ability to discern genuinely important info from information that should be disregarded. So, like, look at how we treat Trump's tweets. Almost every politician has a Twitter and various social media presences. Heck, even Barack Obama has a Twitter, and I think his handle is actually POTUS, so I guess he's going to have to change that now.
Oh, he's gonna have
unless it's like the official White House Twitter. Who knows? But,
I hope he squats on that. Though,
no,
I hope Obama just squats.
I think it is
on
the official White House
president Twitter.
Yeah, but there's almost never any reporting on anyone else's tweets unless it's something truly scandalous and outrageous. And the key word here is outrageous, because at first, everything Trump did was outrageous, but then that apathy sets in. And it's like, oh, another ridiculous tweet from Trump.
Because
it's become the norm.
There's like nothing to compare it to.
And
like, oh, this is normal conduct and this is outrageous.
And
throws out outrageous over and over again.
But I don't even think we should be giving it any attention in the first place. Like, if we ignored his Twitter, I think a lot of this panic would stop. I don't think it would go away, and I'm not saying it's not justified, because I definitely think there's a degree of panic that's justified, given a lot of stuff that's come to light, given a lot of words and actions since, from now to the election to now. But I think the apocalyptic gloom wouldn't be quite so intense.
Thick.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would love to ignore his Twitter. Hell, if everyone did, I don't think he'd be president.
Well, that's what I'm saying is, I think it takes away a lot of his power when people ignore his Twitter, because this is a guy who's all about himself and his ego and his brand. And I remember reading something very interesting about how Berlusconi was defeated in Italy, and I say defeated, how he was sort of voted out in an election. Mm-hmm. If either of you know who Silvio Berlusconi is?
Super do not.
He was the Italian, I want to say, prime minister for quite some time. He was a Trump-type figure, demagogue, lots of outrageous statements, kind of a cult of personality built up around him. Mm-hmm. And I read this thing that was like, he was defeated because his opponent treated him just like any other political opponent. And we need to start doing that. And as much as the media hums and haws about being on Trump's ass, that's fine, okay, but report on his actions and his policies, not his childish Twitter temper tantrums.
Not his words.
Well, not his. There's a time and a place to focus on his words, and it's when he says something truly awful and means it, or follows through on it, or even indicates that he's going to follow through on it. We're not filtering out the minor stuff from the big stuff. And again, it just sort of falls on the media for not doing their jobs properly. And I don't think they're sort of picking up on the fact that they're saying, oh, we're going to dial it up to 11 on Trump, but they haven't stopped reporting every little minuscule thing he does. They haven't stopped reporting his tweets, which is not helping their cause if they truly want to fill the role that the media hasn't really been filling for a while, which is that of a watchdog.
I don't know. I'm kind of torn on that. It's like, because on one hand, definitely it is like the amount of attention that is the source of his power. Literally reality show type dude, just feeds on that. But at the same time, it's also a window to visibility. It says a whole lot about him that's informative.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
And I do not get enough mainstream news media. I guess I haven't seen them
it's an oversaturation.
On every.
It's an oversaturation. It's Trump said this stupid thing today in a meeting or something, or Trump tweeted this. And it's nothing of substance.
Yeah, and he'll say something stupid tomorrow, and the next day, and the next day.
Well, that's exactly it. He's gonna say stupid BS day in, day out, every day. This is unfortunately the state of affairs right now. We need to move on.
Okay.
Because I was watching videos of the hearing for what's her name, who's going to be in charge of education, and man...
Betsy DeVos, what a twat.
I was going to say, man, if that had gotten more, quality coverage, oh, man, that was painful to watch. You go in kind of hating her from reading... Well, I did, because you go in reading certain things about her. I honestly almost felt bad for her after watching it. It was such a debacle.
Oh,
She did not know anything.
Tell me about it. I haven't seen it. Did she get roasted?
Oh, it's honestly shameful for someone who's going for Secretary of Education to know so little about her job. she made a statement. I don't remember the exact quote, but she said, "We need guns in schools because of
grizzly bear." No, yeah, I was just watching it, so I remember the quote. It wasn't even that concise. It was about if something about gun-free zones and no, do you believe guns belong in schools? And she said, I believe it should be left up to the localities and states. And they were like, so you're not going to come down with a yes or no on that? And then she kind of comes back.
That buck along.
Well, she came back with I think Senator so-and-so here was talking about, like, they might want a gun for potential grizzlies. And then she starts laughing. And it's like, it kind of comes off like she was trying to play it off as a joke. Except, one, guns aren't really a joking matter. And two, it's the kind of joke where you're kind of covering your ass because you don't know what you're saying, and it's a nervous laughter, and it just didn't come across. And then they just started grilling her on, well, so what about gun-free zones in schools? And she kind of just froze up. And then there was another question that stuck out to me from Al Franken, Senator Al Franken, where it was about growth versus proficiency, and if... Just to explain...
You didn't know the difference.
I was going to say, just to explain what that is, growth is like your capability or your understanding grew from test A to test B.
Oh, this is like children, like a child's growth.
Yeah, where proficiency is the current state of standardized tests, where it's like you focus on the kids who are marginal and ignore everyone else.
Yeah. No, it was shameful, honestly. After being in the education industry for a couple years, I was just absolutely appalled.
Oh, you're an educator. Okay, so I brought up a relevant topic-ish.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you did. Good job.
But yeah, watching that hearing was just painful.
No, J-Docs, you gotta watch the highlights from it, because I swear, it was almost like if you took a Martian and you told this Martian, I will give you $1 million with the possibility for more if you go to this hearing and pretend like you know what you're talking about and sell it without any previous background knowledge.
She was on a dare.
So embarrassing. Oh, yeah, no, totally. Like, I swear to God, it was just like some drunken dare. It's like, I bet you can't be Secretary of State. Like, I bet I can. Just watching me go to this congressional hearing. It was so...
It was shameful. Really honestly, bad.
I can't believe she did it. What a ledge. Certified madman.
She was awful. Like, honestly, despite the fact that I have I am not qualified for that position. I went to public school in America. I went to a private school for college, and then I taught abroad. Even with those three credentials on its own, I am more qualified than she is already.
Whew. Yeah, that's...
It's tragic.
It was really rough to listen to, and I'm sure that Well, I don't know that other hearings will go quite the same. I saw like a little snippet from Bernie Sanders questioning the healthcare guy, and he was sort of just not answering the question. But man, that Secretary of Education hearing was just, whew, that was a travesty.
Oh no, honestly, I think she's like the like at the top of the pyramid for all the people Trump has appointed. Like, out of everyone he has, wanted in his cabinet, there's not a single person that I've been like, yeah, that'd be a decent pick. But she is, in my opinion, in the top 3 worst choices for any possible seat in the cabinet. It's
fair enough.
It's
fair
repulsive
enough.
And embarrassing.
Yeah, it was pretty bad, and I feel like going back to my original point about media coverage, all they had to do is broadcast those bits, and I don't know how much media airtime those got, because it's not, the kind of thing that gets as much ratings. But, if stuff like that was reported more than Trump's tweets, we'd be looking at a very different climate right now. Is kind of what I was getting at. And,
I agree completely.
And, great that the media wants to be on Trump's case, but they're sort of just dialing it up to 11 on all the stuff that, got him there in the first place, which is not treating him like any other politician. Because whether he wants it or not, he's a politician now.
Yeah. You don't get to not be a politician.
Well,
as the fucking
you're
president.
not an outsider anymore. You're the president, okay?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to contest that. Like, I think he won under dubious circumstances. I think there's all sorts of stuff that sort of raises red flags for me, but it's clear that nothing's going to change anytime soon. So
we've just got to grin and bear it and buckle down for the next 4 years at least.
Well, we have to. I think there's, and this is something the guy who was on last week said, my friend Andrew, there's also a degree of we have to start organizing and we have to start taking action. And I think, because I am still trying to look at positives here to some degree, I think this is a wake-up call for a lot of people who are previously kind of like armchair activists, slacktivists, like, I'm hoping we start to see people kind of mobilize in an effective and constructive way, because there are, you can mobilize in a destructive way, which is, obviously it's destructive. It's not really, I wouldn't say it's that great. I'm sure there are arguments to the contrary out there that you have to destroy before you can create or something like that, but I don't know.
I've similar to what you were saying about like, it's 4 years, buckle down, deal with it, like endure or something. There seems to be like a lot of rhetoric going around now. Like specifically, everyone talks about like divisiveness and it's a time we need unity or something. That smacks me a lot as like who's
saying this?
Generally, like everyone, I guess. I don't know, but it smacks me as the sort of like sit down, shut up, like he's president and it's gonna go this way. When that is definitely not a thing that is so set in stone. You don't have to tolerate that. And like people talk about like, oh, it's time for unity or something with America. It's like,
okay. I see what you're saying now.
Yeah, it's okay. So if this is my soapbox, that's been bugging me a lot recently. That's just like, oh, it's a time for unity. Let's all get along. And it's like, oh, okay, now that you got your weird fucking crazy man president, like now I'm supposed to play nice along with it and all that.
Right, when you refused to during Obama.
Yeah, like let's all like just totally not talk about this. Let's just, let it be. Don't get up in arms about anything. Don't like.
No, I agree. It's completely absurd. And what we're actually looking at, though, I think the rhetoric, there's a degree of validity to it, but I think it's also complete bullshit considering the context and where it's coming from. Because here's the problem: we're in a modern era of tribalism all over again, or maybe we never stopped being tribalistic, if you want to frame it that way, but either way, the tribe is more important than the country right now, and it makes me sick.
I don't know. A country is arbitrary. Like borders are arbitrary. I don't know what that means. But it seems to just be like everyone's talking about it gets told to people who are opposing Trump now. Be like, oh, it's the time for unity. You should focus on unity, focus on how you like these people and how you want to get along with them.
If it's that positive, if they're not outright saying, "Oh, don't be a baby."
Yeah, and it's like oh, Mr. Perfectly defensible position. Like it's hard to argue against like peace and unity as general concepts, and they're like hiding behind that.
That's a logical strategy called the Motte and Bailey, where you have. It's relevant to a medieval structure that I'm forgetting right now, but it's essentially you have your risky argument and then you have your safe argument. So you make the risky argument and then you fall back on the safe argument as soon as you encounter resistance.
Yeah, where it's well, we just want a peaceful transition. Just get along.
Well, so the risky argument would be, and this is a huge oversimplification probably, but the risky argument would be you should support Trump, and as soon as resistance is encountered, it's, oh, well, but we need unity.
Yeah, that seems to be what it is when people are like not, down with this clown. Then it's like, oh, well, why are you being so divisive about it? Be like, motherfucker, this dude got divisive at Meryl Streep for no reason. You remember
Meryl Streep is... I can't believe he went after Meryl Streep of all people. Like, she is a national treasure, man.
Yeah, I
But like
forgot. I forgot about
this is the
that.
dude who is like Mr. Divisive. You see that New Year's tweet where he's like, "Oh, my enemies are fucking."
Well, that's a scary part too. Is that's how he sees them, and that's sort of like one of those red flags I was talking about, where that's kind of the thinking of, an authoritarian, bad time person, tyrant type guy.
Yeah, he sees them as being conquered instead of trying to get along and being all Mr. Unity like they claim to want. So this was an article literally my mom emailed us because she sends out articles on email like that. There was this like New York Times article like Thomas L. Friedman called retweeting Donald Trump that was just like all about like, look, this dude like he can't even like pretend to be nice. He like calls out his enemies who he has defeated in a New Year's tweet. He like he can't just like have like, oh well, I know things are a little rocky right now and a lot of people don't have a lot of faith in me, but you know what? I'm gonna be a good president and
Well, to be fair,
I'm gonna really make you proud, America. It's gonna be great. He's like, no, I'm killing it. Everyone's a piece of shit. If you're not down with it, fucking
get
calling
out.
out Meryl Streep and Hamilton or something. Or just like, I can't handle criticism.
Well,
gracefully.
that was an interesting moment of an interesting lack of self-awareness. The anti-PC, which implies anti quote unquote safe space candidate, suddenly demanding that the theater of all places be a safe space.
Yeah, and the actors in a play about American politics suddenly getting involved in American politics.
It's funny to me because the theater's always historically, the arts in general have always historically been the place to question the status quo and to sort of push the envelope of what society is and isn't okay with.
Yeah. And like Golden Globes award speeches used to be a safe place until Meryl Streep said something. Is it Golden Globes? I don't.
It was something. I don't really keep super up to date with goings on with I guess you would call it like celebrity pop culture type stuff, but
yeah, it's just like it's all bugging me. It's all just it's so gross. Everything's just it's all gross.
Well, and here's something I will say. I don't have too much of a problem with a candidate or president-elect being nasty. I don't like it, but, the kind of people who get involved in politics, most of them are probably not really that great, as people. It's the fact that he's so thin-skinned that he sees criticism as an attack and that he takes it personally. That's what I find troubling.
He literally can't just like ignore Meryl Streep. He's like gotta get the last
word in. Oh
no,
he couldn't. He couldn't handle it.
Are you kidding? He can't even ignore SNL, let alone Meryl Streep. He can't ignore anything.
Well, I was looking at like a compilation of all the things he called fake news, and it's like every news source he has at one point called fake news.
He's just like gotta have the upper hand on everything. Like always get that last word in.
Which sort of ties into something I was going to talk about, which is like I mentioned in a previous recording how the fake news narrative bothered me because it kind of came off like the media trying to regain the social capital and trust it had lost. Not to say that there isn't a problem with unverified op-eds or blog form journalism on the internet passing itself off as fact, and Facebook algorithms, all that stuff. That's all a problem. It all needs to be dealt with. But the fake news narrative as it's portrayed by the mainstream media, that's how I saw it. And sure enough, what better way to show it as a power play than Trump himself turning it on them at that press conference with CNN, where saying, CNN, you're fake news, you should be ashamed, I'm not going to answer your question. Like, sure enough, the fake news narrative was a power play, and it's been turned against, I would say CNN's a legitimate news source. It's been turned against a legitimate news source just by a bully.
Yeah, no, exactly. And the problem is, like, if you recently read apparently at the Trump Hotel in D.C. During the inauguration, they are not allowing any sort of media presence. Like, it's a media blackout at the hotel. Which I'm just like...
I didn't know that, and I wish I could say I was surprised. I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
I'm not even disappointed. I'm just kind of groaning inwardly.
Yeah, no, it's disgusting. And, like, President Obama's last address today, or maybe it was yesterday, I'm not sure, but he said, like,
I think it was today.
He told all the media, was it today? He told all the media outlets that, like, you need to be on top of this at all times, because if you're not, the Constitution begins to crumble.
Well, yeah.
We're going to get into, I was hearing, like, we're getting into some McCarthy and shit.
Oh, yeah.
They're like, the media has to start, like, you know, looking out for each other like this. Like, they got to stand. They need the fucking unity.
To, like, police the president. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's freaking nuts. And there's some stuff out there that kind of says if we truly want, like, objective and investigative journalism back, we need to be willing to pay for it. I kind of agree with that, but then the question becomes, well then, okay, that's fine, but then how do you compete with all the free stuff that is just the instant feel-good button for so many people, be it, the rage baiting, as I like to call it, where it's like that, playing on that sense of righteous anger, even though it's unfounded, or, just classic clickbait nonsense. How does... Even if people are paying
to, like,
for
make news boring.
Well, even if people are paying for quality news, how do you compete with that? And because there's always going to be people who aren't going to pay, and I don't know the answer to that, unfortunately. But it's just disappointing because the media's been saying, oh, we're going to be on Trump's ass, we're gonna make the media great again. I mean, they haven't said that, but I'm just sort of making a joke at a Trump's own campaign slogan. But they're not, though, and it's disappointing. They're just... I've said this several times already. They're just sort of doing what they did before, just more intensely. And I don't think it's going to help. But, maybe I'll be proven wrong. Maybe we'll see the return of investigative journalism. But I don't know.
Well, I mean, Trump's social media presence is, like, so reminiscent of the Westboro Baptist Church approach to...
Oh, my God, yeah.
It's disgusting.
Yeah, but...
Because the whole point of the Westboro Baptist Church, because I studied this in college through countless religion courses, the Westboro Baptist Church doesn't care how many people they recruit, because obviously they're not going to recruit many since, they're, like, the devil's asshole. But their whole purpose is to be as controversial as possible to get as much attention as possible, and it's that attention that allegedly will get them into, whatever perverse sort of heaven they desire.
Yeah.
And it's pretty apparent that, Trump's going after, or at least Trump's people are encouraging, like, because they haven't, ripped his Twitter account from him. So it's apparent that Trump's people are, clearly, going after the same tactic.
Yeah. I mean, that definitely... makes sense, but it just goes back to, like, can we please just ignore his Twitter? Like,
yeah.
And that sort of falls to us as people, but it falls to the media as well. Like, if you stop reporting on Trump's tweets, if it stops becoming a headline item, his tweets will carry a lot less weight. Like, I mean, the fact that Trump made a tweet that reignited Cold War-era nuclear anxieties for almost a full day should have been a warning sign enough that maybe we need to not pay attention to his tweets so much.
We shouldn't have to pay attention to him at all. He just straight up shouldn't be president. Like, it's really petty of me, but, like, since the election happened, I've had such a hard time, like, separating my friends from the election. Like, for the few people I know who actually did vote for him, some of whom are, like, my closest friends and family members, I try so hard not to resent them for voting for this monster. And, I mean, yeah, Hillary certainly was far from the perfect candidate, and, it wasn't the proper political climate for her to get elected in the first place. And we'd need someone, like, godlike to, outrun Hillary for the Democratic Party. But, like, I can't help but, like, subconsciously resent my friends and family who voted for them, which I hate, because it's just, feeding into that whole America's, totally divided, narrative.
Right, and it goes back to the tribalism issue, and that sort of feeds into the issue of news, and it's sort of this terrible Ouroboros of bad in all caps. And I mean, I've not been having that problem quite so much myself, just because I don't know. Jay can attest to this. I'm just not a super emotional person. I tend to sort of just stare at things and break it down into tiny little parts to figure out what's going on. And so I can see the reasons that so many people voted for Trump. I hear people when they say why. The issue where I do start to get a little frustrated, though, is I know they're wrong because I've done research.
Yeah.
Like their reasons are wrong, and it doesn't make me angry, but it makes me disappointed, and it makes me want to figure out, how do you get that information to people? How do you compete with clickbait? How do you dismantle, this call out culture, this rage culture? I shouldn't have said call out culture. There's some merit to certain aspects of call out culture when it's warranted. It's how do you dismantle this sort of reactionary mess we're in on both.
Personally, like, and I've expressed this a whole bunch, like, I do not have the energy or the resources to, like, calmly and, like, methodically, like, inform people about certain stuff. I should have like a big list of articles to link people to.
Yeah, I'm
like studies or something. Just be like, no, like food stamp, like exploitation rates are like 0.09% or something. So like, don't freak out about that. And then have that for like every single political like topic or something.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's good. I think people need to be more giving with information, but and willing to. I think one issue we have is that a lot of people don't want to acknowledge the fact that most people aren't acting out of, and this is a generalization, so by its nature, it's wrong. It's not 100% correct, but I think most people aren't acting out of malice. They're acting out of ignorance or misguided something. And I think with the right approach and the right information, a lot of people can kind of be brought around, but a lot of it is dependent on the approach, unfortunately, because even though you're right, emotion is a pretty big factor in it, and when people are confronted in a certain way, they just sort of decide that you're wrong.
Yeah, and aggression is the more like attractive, like easier course or something. Just be like, to call someone out, or like, just like get angry at them, or just like, in terms of what we've been talking about, like family members or something, like distancing yourself, or like posing like social consequences for certain things like that.
Yeah, and I understand.
It's not as good as like, trying to like discourse like your way around the thing, but like, oh man, I don't know.
What I was gonna say is I can understand. I think the emotional need to distance yourself from stressful stuff like that.
Yeah. So
But,
my point in all this is, I guess, that like, I don't have the resources or the energy or the personal knowledge to like properly debate or discourse somebody, like in a healthy, like reasonable, rational way. And I also understand that like being aggressive and like being like a color outer, like being an asshole about something, is not the proper method to do it, even though it's like wicked easier. So my third route is that I just don't do anything.
You give up. You give up. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
no, it's okay. I wish I could do that. I wish I could separate myself. I just have such a short temper that, like, I can't help but let my,
yeah, I mean,
get the better of me. And
that's what I was saying. I can understand the emotional need for some people to do that, and it's valid. I mean, I can't say it isn't. It's just a shame, because I think that just sort of keeps the lines where they are.
Yeah.
But,
it doesn't solve anything.
All right, so we've been going back and forth for a while, so I think we've sort of covered current events in all this as well. So I don't know that we're gonna do that unless something you guys saw in the news recently, you guys think is worth mentioning? Either of you?
No, we talked about that lady getting roasted on the thing.
Oh boy, did she get roasted! You're gonna have to.
I was just catching on Facebook a captioned little excerpt from what was going on, and she was just not answering questions.
Oh, she was beyond not answering questions.
Oh, she was dancing around it, making the most vague responses. Like, it was amazing.
See, no, dancing implies a degree of grace. She was like stumbling around it.
Drunkenly stumbling in the gutter.
She seemed like trying to brute force it or something. There was some question, I don't remember what it was, but she just said like, "Oh, I believe in accountability." And they're like, that's okay, is it a yes or a no? It's like, well, I believe in accountability.
Yeah,
like,
that's exactly.
That's not an answer.
And you know, it's hard to tell there if she didn't, if she was being spiteful, because this was Tim Kaine, this was Hillary Clinton's running mate, asking the question.
Yeah. Well, where's the unity? Where's the playing nice with each other? Where's
well, it's hard to tell if it was spite because it was Tim Kaine, or if it was just she didn't have an answer, so she just sort of went into panic mode and repeated the same thing over and over.
Which, if I was up before a congressional committee, like, me too, honestly, but I'm not trying to be Secretary of Education, so.
Yeah, honestly, I swear to God, if I didn't know better, I'd just assume that some, like, alien just took over her body, and then the alien was being interrogated, and he was like, oh, I don't know anything about the, education system in America. I'm gonna have to, bullshit my way through this.
How do the humans learn?
What is school? How to book? You need teach? Why not plug robot machine into brain? Download all knowledge.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
What about the bears?
Well,
we're terrified of bears.
Well, and this is someone who believes in, like, the complete dismantling of public education in favor of private education. And if you look into her history, it's not just private education, it's the private education, but like Christian private education, which to me sort of sets off my panic button as like, we can't let the fundamentalists take over the country sort of deal.
Yeah.
But then...
Yeah, absolutely not.
Then, and this is probably me being a tribalistic shithead, to not...
You're allowed to be tribalistic.
To not pull my punches on myself here. But then, I just think back to, like, history and how Jewish culture values education so highly. And I'm just thinking, like, okay, so that just means that, like, Jews are going to start going to Jewish school, and we're going to outclass the Christian kids who don't believe in evolution. And so we're just going to win. We're going to win at society.
The Betsy DeVos education cabinet, like, paves the way for the, like,
suddenly
Jewish academia.
I was gonna say suddenly the white supremacists are right and the Jews are on top of society, and they did it to themselves.
Yeah.
And by the way, that's just purely me joking and being a cynical piece of shit.
Irony.
But yeah, I mean, that's the only, I think, newsworthy thing I can think of off the top of my head.
Yeah, I don't got much else topical
right now, so I guess it's time to pick a list item for the last hour. And let's see, what do we have?
Have we really been already talking for an hour? Oh
God. It's been about an hour.
You'd be amazed how fast it goes.
Yeah, it's actually, like, it goes pretty quickly if you're not careful. Yeah. So, are you guys looking at the list as well? Is there anything jumping out at you? Because I could pick one at random.
We've got some hot Zionism.
Yeah, I mean, that's one I always have a fun time talking about. And I say fun, it's not actually fun, but I always have a lot to say. And I don't want to dominate the discussion, but just because as a Jew dealing with other Jews, I see issues in the greater Jewish community that sort of bother me.
Yeah. Real quick, number 2, attack on Planned Parenthood in Texas, Ohio. What's the story there?
I don't know. I think Andrew may have... If it wasn't Andrew, it might have been someone else.
Well, I guess we have no information on this topic then. So
yeah, we don't really have any info on that, unfortunately. Probably should have come into this a bit more prepared. But, peeling back the curtain a little bit, I've been not in a good way in terms of health for a while, which is things have sort of taken a back burner for a bit.
Yeah, either. What's your health problems, physical or
Um,
mental?
little of both.
Yeah.
Probably cause and effect there to some degree, but it was a case of David got sick and refused to take time off work because I get so little time off work, and so it just got worse and worse and worse. And
Yeah.
then, mental health became a factor because when you're struggling to breathe, who doesn't need a good dose of anxiety and depression? But enough about me. Uh, so let's
In a
see.
lot of those bullshit socialist European countries, people get if you're sick, it's okay if you don't go to work. You don't have like a limit.
Actually, interestingly enough, and this is, I guess, going to take some time from whatever list item we pick, I saw something that kind of struck me today as like, and granted, this is not a one-to-one comparison, but it's such an interesting difference in mindset where a lot of citizens of countries with socialized healthcare, they don't really feel like the I don't even know how to put it, but they don't feel bad about paying a little extra so someone else can live a better quality of life. Whereas in America, we're so paranoid about people either exploiting it or not deserving it that we get so bent out of shape on the issue. Though, to be fair, one gripe against the ACA, the Affordable Care Act, and the way we do insurance and healthcare in our country that probably plays into this is how busted insurance companies are as like a system and as an outgrowth of capitalism.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, the whole system's desperately
The concept
flawed.
of insurance is itself a fucking parasite.
But
it is only like an industry where it's gambling. You're just gambling
it is an
against your fellow citizen.
It is an interesting difference in mindset how, we over here, our opposition is so concerned about people taking advantage of it or not deserving it, which blows me away, because why would someone not deserve to not feel awful all the time?
Right. Yeah. Why would somebody deserve food? There was this, oh man, like I just saw this was like a retweet of something. I can't even remember the dude's name. That it was like, food stamp fraud is at an all-time high. Is it time for us to dismantle the system? And the dude tweeted back like, yeah, this all-time high is 0.09%. Like the other 99.1%, like, wait, 99.91% rather, should, they just, starve, I guess. And it's like, it's incredible. You're right, exactly what you mean, Dave, about how, like, in American culture, like, how really little humanity American culture grants people.
It's not even human. Well, actually, yeah, I thought you were going to say something different, but it's strange how we're so concerned with people taking advantage of a system when it's like, okay, well, if you're concerned about someone taking advantage of the system, how about instead of not doing anything, we take steps to make it less easy to take advantage of if you don't need it.
Well,
but it just kind of boils down to complex solutions to complex problems, which doesn't seem to be in style right now. But
oh yeah, certainly not. Like how everyone, at least not all the Republicans in politics at the moment, but it feels like certainly the majority of them would rather just shut down the Affordable Care Act altogether than either adjust it or come up with a suitable alternative.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because I think
that don't need it.
because I just realized I overused the word interesting, and I'm gonna have to work on that. But Trump may have actually fed the opposition to all of this, not willingly, of course, but he very often would say, "Oh, I'm gonna replace ACA, Affordable Care Act, with something better," and so the Democratic rallying cry has become, "Where's your replacement?"
Yeah, like how are you going to make more people like have better health care now? Because
Well, and I will say,
all anyone's seeing is the dismantling of it, and that's freaking people out because a lot of people rely on it to live.
Yeah, if people don't understand the term Schadenfreude, it's basically deriving joy from others' misery, and I will admit to having had a bit of that.
We all got a little bit of Schadenfreude with this lady at the hearing, just falling down the stairs.
I thought it was
pretty fun.
I almost thought it was too painful to watch. I was talking about though the people who are like, no, I don't like Obamacare, who are actually on the Affordable Care Act. Their health care is through the Affordable Care Act. And I've been looking through just compilations of people on social media oh shit. You mean I'm on this?
They'll be like, oh, Obamacare's going down. That's great. And they're like, what? Where do you get your thing though? Your meds or something? They'll be like, oh, I'm on the Affordable Care Act. It's different.
But yeah, pre-existing conditions actually terrifies me because I could very well go without. I already have problems with insurance. Even after the changes have been enacted in the general marketplace after the act was passed because of my asthma and other medical issues I have, where sometimes they'll just refuse to cover medication. But bringing back pre-existing conditions, asthma's on there, so it's okay, I guess I don't deserve to breathe, I guess.
You haven't worked hard enough. You got to pick your lungs up.
Yeah, work harder to breathe.
So that they can work.
Well, that's exactly what asthma is. I have to work harder to get as much air as everyone else.
Yeah.
To the point where I actually went in for a sleep study at one point, and they're like, we think you might have sleep apnea. And I was like, no, because they said, oh, well, you stopped breathing a couple times, though your oxygenation didn't go down that much in your blood. And I was like, no, it's allergy season, and I'm having some asthma issues, so that's probably all it was. No, I'm not coming back for a CPAP machine because I can't afford it.
Yeah. Well, Jamie, in regards to the Affordable Care Act being repealed, that may affect us as well, because according to that, it says insurance has to cover the children of people who have it, any sort of insurance, if I'm not mistaken, until they're 26, which
it's any insurance.
We're screwed on.
Well, it depends on how old you guys are, because it might not... Even if they repeal it, it won't change anything for at least a year or two. Yeah. So...
And by that point, I'll already be 26. So,
right.
Lord knows the way our family is. Lord knows, we can think that that's affecting us, but we shouldn't be terribly worried because of our fucking goddamn rich white parents. We're not gonna lose insurance because they changed the child rule on it or something.
Oh, okay. I don't know about you. I'm terribly concerned because I'm joining the Peace Corps next month, and I'm moving to Costa Rica. And now that, of course, Peace Corps is a government-run organization, so, God knows how the funding for that program in itself will be, restricted under the Trump administration, let alone the insurance I'm provided through the Peace Corps.
Yeah. Yeah, that's not a pleasant situation, and that's not, the good kind of uncertainty. So, does anything on the list of topics jump out at either of you? Because I could just jump right into talking about Israel and Zionism and the settlement, but I don't feel like that would be an equal exchange.
Maybe we should save that. Maybe we should have a whole Zionist special.
We could. We definitely could. I'm still waiting for the moment where I cause you to go off on the military-industrial complex and the prison to something pipeline that you started going on about.
Back to prison pipeline.
Yeah, because those are interesting topics. God, I need to stop. I need to find more words.
Man, I always just don't think I have the goddamn energy for it.
Yeah, but you always find it when it comes up. That's one of your hot button issues.
It sure is. And, I think the way it would go, if I brought up a prison industrial complex, I guess I don't have any, hard, real, I don't have any hard things for that. But Tish, as much as I do, I guess I would go off on our cultural understanding of what crime is. And we had an old radio show, and I had a whole thing about Batman for like an entire hour.
I remember because
Batman
I was
is
there.
himself symbolic of our culture's toxic perception of crime. Yeah. The way to stop crime is to punch it, is essentially what it boils down to. The way to stop crime is to punch it and make miserable, like, torture, human imprisonment setups to discourage crime. Like, crime was, like, getting all encouraged previously. But, like, oh, we got to show that there's consequences for crime. And, like, yeah, that'll...
Yeah, and that got you off on the prison industrial, military
It's already
industrial.
getting me off right now.
Yeah, it is. It is. Not, unintentional wording issues aside.
Yeah.
I think, though, if we do want to go on that, even though it's not on the list of topics, there was a news item in the sort of brief hiatus we had. I'm sure you saw this, Jay, of... oh god, I'm blanking out. The government official, I want to say it was like a mayor or a governor, who was like, Donald Trump, we will give you our prisoners and have them work on the wall. Which was, of course, met with immediate outcry, because that's like a huge violation of prisoners' rights.
Yeah.
But, like, that's a pretty good way to highlight the mentality a lot of the country has towards prisoners.
I mean, it's just dehumanization.
Well, I mean, at that point, you're bordering on, like, slave labor.
oh, for sure. But, I mean, culturally...
But, yeah,
God,
dehumanization,
okay, like, I want to maybe, like, for a future episode, like, let me get a list of talking points. I'm too discombobulated.
Yeah, start tossing it into the list. We'll get to it.
Here, I'm just gonna start one right now.
Yeah, no, do it. Go for it. But I'm not seeing a lot in the list we can sort of hone in on today, just because it seems like a lot of those were put in, and we didn't. And this is our bad. Me and Jay, this is our bad that we didn't really kind of look into it. I guess that's sort of something that comes up when you sort of start crowdsourcing your topics. You need to follow up on that. But
and we just assumed we could roll up to the Skype any day of the week and just like feed from the trough of topics.
Yeah,
without,
so
any
I guess lesson learned here. But I guess so. We'll draw on on you then, May. You said you're an educator and you're joining the Peace Corps, so I'm sure you have a lot you could talk about. So maybe you can get us started on something if you can think of anything.
Oh, yeah. Well,
you seem to be well informed.
I tried. Oh, man. Well, to comment on the whole, when we were talking about the healthcare system in America, I recently read an article from a congressman. Oh, gosh, where was this? I don't even know who it was from. I saw it on one of the Costa Rican expat Facebook pages. I think it was a congressman from Arizona or New Mexico, something southwestern, who said that the Costa Rican healthcare system is more advanced than the American healthcare system in regards to public health care, which is, outrageous because, it's a third world country and I'm going there to help with economic development. Like, certainly,
right.
As a first world country and a world leader, we should have better health care than the Costa Ricans. I mean, kudos to the Costa Ricans. Obviously, they've got their shit together. I don't know why they need me, but
yeah.
I was so blown away by that headline. I was just like, oh, God, what does that say about Costa Rica? What does that say about us?
They still need you. You got to bring the white man's civilized world to those goddamn...
Oh, God.
No, I'm bringing the white lady's civilized world to the Costa Ricans. I'm bringing feminism.
Feminist imperialism.
Oh, boy.
I'm just fucking with you.
Yeah, that was... yeah. Oh, boy.
Sorry.
Yeah, I could tell you about the limited knowledge I have on Costa Rica. I could tell you about the Korean educational system.
I mean, anything. It's sort of just freeform. I mean, we've been talking a lot about U.S. politics and Trump lately, but we sort of keep it open to just sort of, stuff people can talk about that's not like, BS celebrity gossip type fluff, stuff of substance, obviously. But, the whole point of this venture is to get people to talk and listen to each other.
Okay. Well, we could talk about the overwhelming youth suicide problem in Korea.
That sounds cool. Well, I mean,
not cool, but it's something to talk about.
Like an interesting topic.
Actually, something that came to mind as well that we can get on tonight or later. Russian shadow politics, or because I just read a whole thing about that, like Putin and trying to sort of dismantle the West.
Yeah.
In like if you want to feel fucking bleak and despondent, we can talk about that.
Oh boy.
One step ahead of you, buddy.
About that topic, so if you want to educate me, feel free.
I mean, I'm not super well informed because this was something I read just sort of during my lunch break at work. I didn't do a ton of research, but it's sort of just, if you look at the way things have been going, a lot is going in Russia's favor, and Russian money has been caught going into a lot of these far-right organizations that are looking to break up the EU in Europe. And, we now have positive proof of some degree of linking Trump and Russia, not necessarily saying, Putin hacked the election and it was all a scam, or, some other such thing like that, but, there's a definitive link.
Oh, absolutely.
And
like the fact that they're so buddy-buddy is amazing, especially since I feel like the Republican Party, generally speaking, is like super, at least previously, was super anti-Russian,
Well, and that's what strikes me with this tribalistic nonsense is like, so you're just gonna abandon your principles because your guy won, and you're just gonna roll over? Like, sure, we haven't even started Trump's first term yet, but you'd think you'd be calling him out on this Russia stuff if you really were gonna fight him on it. And like some of his cabinet picks are like the cabinet picks for going soft on Russia. And
oh, absolutely.
And it's just a lot of it comes down to like following some money in donations and personal ties to Russian authorities or Putin himself, and then how subsequent events tied to this money, these parties, these individuals, kind of comes out in favor of Russia. Right now we got a president-elect who thinks NATO's a bunch of BS, which it's been the cornerstone of some international policy and security for quite some time. We suddenly have the EU, which has been sort of a European solution to try and dismantle the divides and the animosities that brought about 2 world wars. And suddenly, because it disadvantaged, we're starting to see that break apart, and surprise, surprise, Russia kind of benefits from that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And honestly, like, I feel like I'm not really educated enough to like fully dive into the complexities of this topic, but like,
I mean, I'm not either, so go ahead.
Oh god, the topic is just like so
it's loaded.
It's loaded.
It's loaded, and it's bleak as hell.
Yeah.
Like, this could be the plot of a Metal Gear game. For those of you who aren't nerds like me, look up Metal Gear. But for those of you who know what I'm talking about, I'm right.
What is, like, I keep coming back to, like, what is the breaking point for the American goddamn people or the rest of the American government system that is not the goddamn executive branch?
Well, that's what's
like,
been...
Trump's like, oh, I'm not friends with Putin. To be like, well, you said you were friends with Putin. You have pictures of you hanging out. You've got his nudes on your phone. Like, what do you want? At what point, like, do we...
We got the 3 a.m. booty call that Putin sent you.
Yeah, Putin, like, was, there was a sex tape and Putin was having sex with his wife and he said Donald accidentally.
Oh,
and it was
God.
really awkward. But, like, what's the fucking limit? Like, how much more does anybody need to be suspicious?
This is where we get into what's been making me so sort of overloaded and despondent lately, is just looking at all the things that have been happening and, like, people just completely 180ing and not taking a stand because it's their guy. And it's like, well, okay, I liked Obama, but I was plenty willing to call him out on expanding the federal surveillance powers and like the Snowden stuff and all of that. Like, I still don't agree with what he did. I still don't agree with the use of drones, and I was perfectly willing to oppose Obama on those things. And it's just, I'm not seeing that from the other side of this, from the Trump supporters, and that's what's sort of getting me down.
Yeah, dare I say, Trump is their safe zone.
Their
safe
space.
They don't want to confront anything about it.
And it's tragic because there's some like perfectly decent Republicans that didn't vote for him that I feel bad are being like lumped in with this nonsense. Like, our father is, a hardcore Republican. He's been a Republican since like I'm sure the moment he was out of the womb. And during the election, he's like, I hate Hillary, but I hate Trump more. And it like honestly, I think like a little bit of him died on election day when he voted for Hillary, just because he recognized that like clearly she's the lesser of two evils. And I wish some of the people who supported Trump would come around to that, because yeah, Hillary was far from perfect, and I don't necessarily think she'd make the best president in the world, but I think at this point a shit sandwich would be superior to Trump.
Yeah, I mean, to use the South Park metaphor, yeah, pretty much.
The old shit sandwich versus, what was it, giant douche?
Giant douche versus turd sandwich, yeah.
I take either of those candidates. Our father actually posted something on Facebook talking about, like, all the crazy stuff that Trump has, done so far since he's been elected, and all the, terrible people he's elected to his cabinet. And he's like, well, what are we going to do, guys? All the Democrats are walking out of his inauguration. Are they just being, little crybabies or what? And I'm just like, I think they've got every right to walk out, freedom of speech and all that. Best case scenario, now that Trump's president, is that the ghost of Abe Lincoln will come and possess him, and maybe we'll have a half-decent president.
Well, I think part of what needs to happen is, we need, and I'm speaking in a general term, because though I am a registered Republican simply due to how Texas works.
Mm-hmm. Do they by default register people as Republicans?
I mean, it's kind of a waste of a vote not to be Republican.
Well, that's what I was going to say. And I think that's the problem, is we need to deal with, we need to deal with districting, but before we can do that, we need to start. The Democratic Party has been so focused on winning federal elections, but the Democratic Party needs to start, they need to copy some aspects of the Republican strategy. They need to start taking local governments. They need to start taking districts. They need to start redistricting. They need to start taking, state governments, because they haven't been doing that. And I think that's kind of what brought us to this situation. At least in part.
I feel like I'm dreaming, like, now that Trump's been elected and all this nonsense that's happened. Since,
there's still a sense of unreality to it, for sure.
Yeah.
I feel like this is just some grand hallucination, and I'm in a coma or like the Matrix or something. I don't know.
It's like It's a Wonderful Life. No, is it?
Exactly.
It's style where you just sort of like come out of it.
Yeah, like I keep waiting for like the third shoe
to drop.
On Inauguration Day, like some dude in a coat will just finally come out and be like, oh well, he can't because he's
clearly a lunatic.
Well, see, that's what people have been.
There's so much wrong going on.
That's what people have been banking on at every step of the way, and I cannot believe that the systems of checks and balances put in place is failing so spectacularly. Because, a lot of people don't like the Electoral College. I kind of think it's a good idea, because it was engineered to deal with this specific situation. The fact that it didn't is a bit of an issue. And, part of that comes down to the idea of faithless electors and some states passing legislation that sort of legally obliges their electors to vote for, whoever won the state.
Yeah.
Which, sort of defeats the purpose. Because, I don't know, it boils down to whether you prefer a representative republic or a representative democracy. And I think we're watching right now built-in weakness of a democracy, and that is, you can't expect everyone to be informed. You can't expect everyone to vote in their self-interest. And people will rise to power on, platforms that are essentially demagoguery.
Yeah. Oh, boy.
Not to say that the Electoral College is a perfect solution and that it's a republic, not a democracy, so you don't get a say. Like, that's not what I'm saying, but the Electoral College was supposed to was put in place specifically for instances where something like this occurs, and it didn't do its job. There are ethics committees that are the intelligence community, both of them are being completely poo-pooed and not ignored. And it's just
being poo-pooed, goddammit.
It's baffling to me. And then the worst part of it all to me is, yeah, Trump is awful, but even if he gets impeached, which I'm not even sure that's going to happen, a lot of people seem to be sure it's going to happen, even if he gets impeached, so who does that leave us with? Mike fucking Pence as president?
Yeah.
Because that's so much better.
Which that's what I hear is just no, this is their plan the whole time. He's of course a total goofy chode.
Yeah, no,
so, he'll get out immediately, and then we'll have this fucking weird lizard man.
I can't help but
Mike Pence
there's merit to that.
That's
it's very possible that they know full well that Trump won't last longer than a few months before getting impeached and probably out of the office within a year. And that's why they're not fighting him on a lot of this shit, because then Mike Pence gets to be in there, and that's just straight up the Republican Party wins the day.
Yeah. Honestly,
and that's when the riots go.
I'm just so ashamed that this is our president. We're expecting him to get impeached. Honestly, I think he's arguably the biggest embarrassment as a president that America has ever had. And not to shit on our great, a dozen times great-grandfather, but he's even worse than John Adams, who spent the majority of his presidency writing love letters to our great-whatever-grandmother. We're, distantly related to them or something.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, through Adams, not to John directly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know about any of this.
You didn't know that?
No, not specifically. We'll figure this out later.
Well,
we gotta go through some genealogy records.
The funny thing is, so a lot of supporters were like, "Oh, it's like Andrew Jackson all over again," and it's like, did you study history? I mean, that's kind of the Trail of Tears was not a good thing.
Yeah.
Among all the other disastrous things that went on under Andrew Jackson, and if you don't know, you should look.
People like Andrew Jackson?
You should look it up, because man, oh man, there is a hot mess in American history right there.
He's crazy. He fucked over so many people. Gary Busey looking fucker. I don't even know what the fuck he did, but all I know is bad. He's bad. He's on the fucking 20. Why?
Well, it's the most
Get fucking Harriet Tubman back on that shit.
Well, the reason people reference it is because he was the most notable populist in American history. And people sort of take that and run with it without thinking about what populism sort of implies and how it went every other time populism has sort of become a big deal, which is to say not good in general, though to its credit, as a country, historically, we've always survived and things have got shaken up to the point that actual progress generally happened afterwards, though not necessarily immediately afterwards, and it was still pretty bad for a while, but
yeah,
it's just bad.
Oh
it is a lot of bad.
I swear, my head will just explode. It wouldn't surprise me at all if we had a second Trail of Tears, only instead of Native Americans, it was Muslims.
Or
I was gonna say it's like a double whammy of awful, because it's on the one hand we have these historical parallels to the Trail of Tears with Mexicans and refugees from the Middle East, And then on the other hand, you have parallels to the most recent shame in American history, and it's so recent that we still have people who are alive that lived through this. The Japanese internment camps, we have those being revisited, and it's a double whammy of bad. And the scary part with the internment camps is technically the laws that allowed for it back then still exist. And I was really hoping something would get done to sort of maybe make those go away, but it's a little too late for that at this point.
Yeah, honestly, like, it's difficult to deal with in my case because I'm such an expat at heart, and to be perfectly frank, I hate living in America. I especially hate the political climate that we're under now. I'm never happy when I'm living in America. I'm perfectly happy abroad because I think, like, I know far more about American history than I know about any other country's history. And I'm just, like, looking back in any era, I'm just like, oh, God, we are such garbage people. We are just the worst. And then you go abroad and you hear, like, you know, like, before I went to Korea, I had no idea the terrible things that the Japanese did to the Koreans when they invaded. And then,
oh, yeah.
Like,
I mean, the Japanese did
were
some really
at
awful stuff during World War II. I mean, I don't know how much you know about history in World War II, but another notable thing that happened, I think this was World War II, was the rape of Nanking, where Japan invaded China. Do you know about this?
Yep.
It was brutal, and if you don't know, this is not for the faint of heart. Even reading it will probably make your skin crawl, but if you're interested in learning about how absolutely horrible humans are to other humans all the time, look it up. Because it's just another example of just people doing atrocious things.
Yeah. No, it's just terrible. And the problem is, like, I want to escape the American political climate at the moment and run away to Costa Rica. And then I'm sure when I get there, I'll hear about the horrific history of Costa Rica and, you know, all the terrible things that may or may not have happened there that I'm just oblivious and ignorant to at the moment. But it just, like, it just makes me so depressed. I think humans are just garbage all around.
No, I agree. Like, human history is just rife with people doing horrible things to other people for really, like, paper-thin reasoning.
Oh, yeah. No, it's repulsive. And honestly, if aliens ever come down and, like, you know, look into our history, they're going to be like, wow, you guys are monsters to each other.
Probably why we're not...
your planet.
This is probably why we're not part of, like, the galactic government.
Oh, exactly. They don't want us there. We're fucking ruin everything.
Yeah, I love that. I love that classic narrative of, like, oh, as soon as humans reach a certain point, the aliens will be like, oh, they're ready. Time for galactic friend. council time.
Galactic
but, like,
friend
status. Like, I just imagine, like, a big fancy alien, like, snapping on the cloak and somebody and, like, looking in the mirror and be like, all right, this is going to be a good ceremony.
Well,
huh?
yeah. Well, it's like
it's
like the Star Trek or Mass Effect idea of, like, oh, there's, like, one unified human government. It's like, I can't see that ever happening.
Yeah.
Like, I personally, I'm into science fiction, and I really enjoy the rare bits of science fiction where they deal with, like, aliens and stuff, where it's like, there isn't a single Earth government, and actually, aliens are super duper suspicious of humans because we're violent as fuck.
Oh no, we're terrible. We're absolutely terrible. And, like, if there are aliens watching this right now, I want to send out an apology and be like, we're not all like this. It just happens.
That's what I was saying. Like,
human apologist. Human apologist.
I would like to see, like, one episode of Star Trek, like early Star Trek, where the Klingons were like these bad guys, right? Like, Klingons are just like, oh, we will fight you with spears and our gold shirts if you step to us.
And our
but then, like, there's one episode where they run into some Klingons and we're like, oh no, we're not part of that Klingon nation. We're a completely entirely separate thing, and we have a whole other different, like, narrative position, and we're not the bad guys in this old Star Trek.
Yeah. No, I think it's partially because, you know, that statistic, and I'm just ballparking it because I don't remember the actual figures, that, like, what is it, 3% of humans are, like, considered sociopaths, but, like, you know, it's something insane, like 46% of, you know, world leaders and CEOs are sociopaths. It's because of that percentage of sociopaths that dig their way to the top that we have such a horrific history as a species. Like we just elect and promote the worst freaking people, and we're just garbage. We need to go.
No, but like you don't do that actively. People don't like naturally do that. I know that same thing. I tell people about that shit all the time. It's like what it takes to like get like up, like social mobility, up and up and up through power, through control, like in politics, in business.
It takes a certain personality.
You've got to be lacking some level of humanity.
And it's not that it takes sociopathy.
Empathy.
It's not that it requires sociopathy, but people who exhibit sociopathic traits are naturally really good at climbing ladders. So, or you just naturally have like your fucking everything run by the worst people.
Yep.
Yep. Oh boy, this has been an uplifting.
Yeah, I was gonna say this has been like a really like downer podcast today.
It's always a downer podcast. It's always a downer world to think about any of this shit. Which is
I
why
don't know.
I try to block it out.
Even though I'm not a socialist, having Andrew on, he had a pretty aggressively, like, not optimistic, but like resolute, like not depressive, like shit's bad, but I'm gonna like buckle down and like do my Marxist thing and work towards making that happen because this is not acceptable to me. And I think there's plenty of people out there like that, and I think just due to, what I said my situation was earlier with my health issues and my life situation, and I'm just not in a like happy place right now, and I think it's sort of bleeding through today, and I think that's fine. I think just that we acknowledge it. But, I will, rewinding a bit, I do kind of agree with you, May, though, about being an expat, because I spent some of my younger years, basically my entire middle school experience, like grades 6 through 8, living in Peru. And it really affected me in a way I didn't think it would, and not in like the stereotypical like, and apologies since you are a white girl, but like the stereotypical college white girl, like studied abroad and came back a new person, but like it really does give you a different perspective on American politics and global happenings. And like, when I was living there, Bush was president, and I remember the kind of laughingstock we were then, and I'm sure that's going to be nothing compared to what we're in for.
Laughingstock? You're going to be the getting rocks thrown at you stock.
Oh, yeah, no. And the problem is, since I'm going there for Peace Corps, unlike when I was teaching in Korea, there are teachers from the UK, from Canada, from Australia, New Zealand, South Africa. I could lie and just say I'm Canadian, which I normally do when I'm abroad. But if I'm doing Peace Corps, I can't lie. Like, they only accept Americans.
Right, Peace Corps is an American institution, yeah.
Exactly.
They're gonna know.
Yeah, but no, I totally live up to that, stereotypical college white girl comes back from study abroad and has a whole new, arrogant perspective on things, like, oh, I'm so open-minded, blah, blah, blah.
Well, I mean, there's a degree of truth to it. I do think traveling for more than a couple weeks, like living abroad for more than a couple weeks, does have a profound impact on people. What I was more making fun of is like the kind of person who goes abroad and they come back like completely different. Like they've just decided that they're a different person now, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Like I know one person who went and studied abroad in Germany for a whole year, or maybe Germany and then somewhere else. And she came back with like a fake as fuck accent, and I knew it was fake because I knew her before and I knew her after, and like also there were times where she dropped the accent, and yeah.
Okay.
Commit at least, for Christ's sake.
Oh my God.
I have a similar story, and I can beat the absurdity of that. So, in college, this girl who I'm friends with, and I hate to shit on her, but it's just burning.
No, yeah, like disclaimer. This
if
is
you
my.
Can't shit on your friends. Who can you shit on?
This is my friend, and I apologize for shitting on her, but I did.
It's a good thing. It's a good thing I'm using a fake name, but so she transferred into the school, and she had been homeschooled her entire life. And she had been raised in Central Virginia, in the middle of nowhere. Wonderful girl, very nice family, very, open-minded sort of bunch. Not the sort of people that you'd expect to come from a homeschooled Central Virginia household, right?
Mm-hmm.
Pretty liberal, all things considered. And she came to school with a British accent.
Oh, no.
I asked her before I even knew where she was from or, what her 411 was. And I asked her, I'm like, oh, that's cool. Nice to meet you. Where are you from? And she's like, oh, I'm from, 30 minutes up the street. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Did you live for an extended time in the UK? Where did you get that accent? And she's like, I got it from the Harry Potter books. And I was like, no.
How do you get an accent from books?
Oh, boy.
If she said the movies, that would be bad enough, but how do you get an accent from books?
I don't know. And, I think it was just because, stereotypical homeschooled kids aren't properly socialized. And I was just like, I was one of the first people to talk to, and I just told her, I was like, oh, my God. That's great, but don't tell anybody else that. Please just lie. Just say that you're born in Virginia, but you grew up in like Manchester or something. Just lie.
I feel bad.
Or just say
that.
one of your best friends was British or something.
She's homeschooled, so I guess she never got whatever sort of weird subconscious lesson tells you that is a bad idea.
She was never.
Man, I would totally just be like, oh, buddy, oh, dude, you can't do that.
Yeah.
I mean, it didn't last
so
long.
bad.
Luckily, it didn't last long. I think it lasted for about her first week, but that had, at this tiny liberal arts women's college I went to, that had done enough damage by that point. So.
Yeah. Oh boy, yeah, I can't top that. I honestly cannot top that. But
and what's sad? Like I wish I could say I just made that up, but it's just so weird. I don't think I could come up with something.
But
I totally get though, wanting to morph your identity to distance yourself from.
Oh, I get that
your
too.
Hometown if you're entering college or something, especially if it's 30 minutes up the street, Central VA.
Well, I also I
try
get
to be an individual, be interesting like that, and a British accent's pretty easy to do.
Well, I also it's easy to understand the desire to reinvent yourself.
Yeah. Actually, a couple weeks ago, I don't remember the episode title, but if you listen to the podcast, This American Life, they had an episode. One of the stories, the theme of the show was about reinventing yourself, and one of the stories they interviewed this kid who went to UCLA or something. And his freshman year, he met his roommate, and of course, all the freshmen, when they're paired with their roommates, they're given a little synopsis on who they'll be living with. Oh, my name is Kevin, I'm from Wyoming or whatever. But this kid, he was an American citizen, but he was technically born in Nigeria, and he was black. And for some reason, his roommate's parents were anthropologists, and they had studied extensively in Africa, particularly in Nigeria. So when this kid found out his roommate was oh, he's from Nigeria, even though he was only born there, and he was essentially raised in America, he was as American as he could be. So when he gets there, he is like, oh my gosh, it's so nice to meet you. I've never met anyone from Nigeria. Tell me all about you, blah, blah, blah. And, this kid just rolled with it. And he faked a Nigerian accent for the first semester of college. And he totally lived up to this, he embodied your stereotypical, Nigerian foreign exchange student. And, everyone knew him as the Nigerian kid. And he was super popular about it. And he had a girlfriend who assumed he was Nigerian, too. And one day, when after a couple months of dating this girl and they were getting pretty serious, he told her,
dropped the accent?
He just dropped the accent one day. And she's like, wow, you really perfected your American accent. And he's like, because I'm American, I've just been faking it this whole time. And, he played it off as a social experiment, and I think his girlfriend broke up with him for it. But everyone else just thought it was hysterical.
It's pretty funny, but I can understand someone wanting to break it off when you get into a relationship with somebody who's essentially been living a lie for months.
Oh, yeah. No, I don't blame her at all. I would totally break up, too. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? You've been, pretending to be Nigerian the whole time? What does the matter with you? I'd assume he's a, psychopath.
No, but at the same time, I get, people who, when you have, an identity kind of put on you, you do naturally do that. People definitely spend a lot of energy building a sort of identity. But, when you're getting, an identity projected across you, I think it's a natural thing to try to, even subconsciously or not, absorb that, because it makes, even if you if it's not true or you don't necessarily agree with it, an acknowledgeable identity that people know you as makes sense and makes it easier for you to be like with those people under that understanding, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's similar to that movie that we just saw, Passengers, in theaters. Like, it's like, how long can you maintain this lie without it, blowing up in your face? Have you seen Passengers?
I have not.
Oh, it's kind of stereotypical, but I really enjoyed it. It's really good. It's do you know the premise?
Nope. I think it's like aliens are involved.
No.
Or am I thinking of something else? I'm probably thinking of something else.
So the premise is that there's this second Earth that's 120 light years away or something, and people are like cryogenically freezing themselves or putting themselves into hibernation and just shipping the fuck out there to start a new life. And it takes, like I said, 120 years to get there, and Chris Pratt wakes up after the first 30 years, and everyone on board, including the crew, is asleep, and he can't get back to sleep, so he's like, well, fuck, I'm going to die on this ship, like, I'm just going to
this is going to be spoiler alert for Passengers, if any listeners haven't seen it.
No, this is not spoiler, it's in the trailer. Anyway, so after the first year, he's like, he's alone on a spaceship for a year, going insane. And he has this huge existential crisis, well, not existential, ethical crisis about whether or not he should wake somebody up, and he finds Jennifer Lawrence, and he's like, wow, she's really hot, and she's a journalist, and she's super funny, because, he can get her biography or whatever from the information on board, and he decides to wake her up, but doesn't tell her that he woke her up, and just plays it off as some sort of crazy malfunction, essentially condemning her to the same fate. So it's just like, how long can he live with this lie? I really enjoyed the movie. I thought it was interesting.
And the thing was, he could live with it indefinitely, but then the robot waiter, spilled the beans. About it, and then she hates him, and that was just like, oh, so you're probably you could have kept that going for how long, you fucking crazy sociopath, man?
I think he would have eventually told her, because the robot spilled the beans literally moments before he was about to propose to her, and I was just like, oh fuck. Oh, that's
man, I would have crumpled. I'm shit at lying. I'm shit at holding shit together. I would just be like, look, I gotta be honest with you, and if you want to kill me with a hammer because I did this, then you're right to. I mean, but I did this thing. It's bad. I killed you.
Yeesh. Yeah.
Yeah, and we were talking about it after, and maybe I have some sociopathic tendencies, but I totally would have played it off immediately when she woke up, oh, I was trying to, get myself back to sleep, and I was messing with the whole computer system that puts people into these, states of hibernation, and it accidentally sets yours off. I'm so sorry. Oopsie. It was entirely intentional.
That's even worse than ignoring lying. That's twisting the what actual happened narrative into a way that makes you also the victim of it.
Well, yeah, but I mean, he was just gonna live with the lie.
Yeah, it was pretty fucked up.
See,
and they banged, dude. Before she found out, they banged, and I think that's rape by fraud. Because she would not have banged him if she knew that he had kind of condemned her to hell.
I suppose, if that's how you're gonna define it, yeah.
Oh, what is the business term? It's bait and switch. It's a bait and switch.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kind of.
Yeah.
Well, it goes back to that conversation, J-Doc, that we were having in the car earlier about my ability to bullshit my way out of any situation. That I'll just twist the truth and lie to,
Oh, she got a maxed out
like
charisma skill. She's a bullshitter. Tried and true.
Got it. Well, you've heard it here first, folks. I may or may not be a sociopath.
Don't trust her. Nobody trusts her.
Don't do it.
Sorry.
Don't do it.
Yeah. Well, luckily for y'all, I plan to die on this planet, so I'm not gonna.
Anyway, Passengers. Chris Pratt, Kristen Stewart. Go see it now in theaters. No, it's not Kristen Stewart. Who is it?
Totally not. Jennifer Lawrence.
Jennifer Lawrence.
It's not Bella from Twilight. Get out of here.
Oh, the old J-Law. Katniss in space.
Oh God.
I would have loved, because
what if we're living how the Hunger Games happen?
Oh gosh, it wouldn't surprise me if Trump enacted some sort of Hunger Games sort of thing.
Why do you think the Hunger Games got popular when there's the clear dystopian narrative of the disaffected, low humanity, weird nightmare Ponzi fucking Rizzo, upper class douche cakes.
Douche cakes. Yeah,
and the hardworking, put upon oppressed people who are just trying to survive the system. It's a very classist dystopia, You know how it is.
It wouldn't surprise me a bit if Trump started the Hunger Games, but for immigrants who are trying to get legitimate status in the country. It's if you win the Hunger Games, we'll give you a green card.
Wow, that would be pretty fucking serious.
Yeah, no, that'd be absolutely terrible. And it's all right, once we get to that point in America, it's all right, now it's time to shut down the country and hand it back over to the Queen.
Yeah.
We can't be held. We just can't be held responsible for this nonsense.
I was just thinking today, like, at what point in a theoretical future for the country of the United States of America do, like, a lot of the citizens, like, start, like, side-eyeing over to, like, European countries, but, like, you guys wanna, like, maybe occupy for a little bit? Like, you wanna
Like
roll up
invite
Well,
them to
and
occupy us?
help
you
get
know,
some shit sorted out over here? Like,
it's
hey, can you...
funny you say that because going back to the whole expat discussion, and I think I brought this up in our first recording, Jay, but since May doesn't know, um, I'm actually I'm gathering information to make a case for German citizenship because on my
Oh,
mother's
God.
side, they're not Holocaust survivors, but they're refugees from the Nazi regime. They got out
Mm.
just before, and my
Yeah,
grandfather was actually stateless because Hitler revoked the statehood of the Jews. And Germany has a policy where if you are within 2 generations, so I could do it, but my kids couldn't if I were to ever reproduce. You can get German citizenship.
I mean, there's never been a better time to jump on that than
Well, that's
right now.
exactly it. Like I was talking with my parents, and we were saying like there's a lot of red flags going on. Like let's not be alarmist and let's not start packing up our things. But my mom was, and my mom's an accountant, and so she was like, oh, well, maybe it's time to start liquidating some assets.
let's at least, like,
Um,
look up what kind of
and
forms we need to
right,
fill
right,
out.
and my dad was like, well, know your escape route
Yeah,
Yeah,
because
no, this is
that's
definitely the
that's
time to
what
nail
did a
down your
lot
golden
of
parachute.
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
I always
Imagine,
tell
like, 2 generations post, like, fleeing to Germany.
Right, and James was remarking
the
on the
irony.
irony of it all, how like your ancestors fled from Germany, and you're fleeing right back because the place your grandparents chose started doing the same shit they ran away from.
Well,
I mean,
things change.
I feel like Trump and Hitler definitely have the same hairstyle. I could see them doing,
Uh,
same nonsense. Like you could
yeah.
totally put like a strawberry blonde, little dash on him, and it would the resemblance is
Hitler looks a bit too, or not Hitler. Trump looks a bit too much like overheated pudding, I think. Um,
So the thing with like everyone comparing Trump to Hitler because of, like, oh, these things he says, that things he says, like, these policies, that policies, reminiscent of early Hitler, totally on with that. But, like, it's kind of like a bummer, like, that comparing a modern American politician to Hitler does not carry the same clout it does, especially after fucking the whole Obama administration, which I never, like, read any real arguments for things Obama did that were comparable to Hitler. But, like,
absolutely not.
I feel like I feel, and I'm maybe it's liberal bias, but it seems to be kind of clear that people running some direct parallels between Trump and Hitler that, like, make more sense than, I don't know. I only ever saw posters that said Obama or Hitler or something, but, like,
well,
not like, well, this is what he said and this is what Hitler said. Oh,
I
kind of
yeah,
similar. But that's everywhere for Trump.
I don't agree with the comparison of Obama to Hitler, but
Oh, of course not.
the through
Because
line you could make, the logical comparison would be the expansion of federal powers, and the difference is that's been a trend. I think going through Bush has been the expansion of powers for the federal branch of government.
okay,
So,
yeah, that's something.
and the surveillance as well, and uh, the fact that Obama implements social programs, you could make that comparison, but none of Obama's programs were anything remotely like the Hitler Youth Project.
Yeah, I mean, Obama has black hair, Hitler has black hair, so clearly there's a tie.
Oh, one of my favorite things to say is, like, oh, Hitler drank water. Um,
Yeah, he definitely
because,
drank
yeah,
water.
you can
Well,
compare anything to anything.
I was
It
gonna
doesn't make
say,
Yeah.
sense.
you can make all sorts of comparisons. The problem is how well does it hold up to detailed analysis? And unfortunately, it holds up a little more than I'm comfortable with right now.
Absolutely.
The
Well,
Trump-Hitler parallel?
Yeah, and also not even that, but just the rise in hate crimes, and there has been a rise in anti-Semitism, and not to steal the spotlight from people who need it because there are plenty of other terrible things going on, But, recently there were a whole bunch of bomb threats called into, like, Jewish community centers, and it's like, this is America now. That's kind of what the Jewish community's dealing with.
Yeah. Yeah. Also,
the greater, like,
call
U.S.
you out
Jewish
for having
community.
an undue martyr complex about anti-Semitism in the United States.
Because to me, it's like, yeah, that's bad, and it's terrible for me to say this, but until, like, we get anything to the degree of, like, extrajudicial execution in the streets, till we get to the point where, like, we have lynchings. Like, yeah, okay, we have cause for concern, Jewish community, but let's not pretend we're the, number one victims right now.
Yeah. Wait until the new crystal knocked, and then it'll get serious.
Yeah.
Right.
I feel like everyone's being persecuted against, with the exception of, like, white cisgendered people.
Well, the brutal irony here is that a lot of the people who voted for Trump feel that, it's only white men are the only white cisgendered men, although they probably wouldn't know the term cisgendered. Not to take a swipe at their education, but it's not a term you really.
No, I'm sure they've heard it, but they think it's pussy speak for safe spaces.
It's not a term you really need or hear much about if you're not trans or dealing with those issues. Is what I was getting
at. Which they're not. Yeah.
But there's a lot of rhetoric around that's like, white men are the only people left who it's okay to abuse. And while there is a little bit of merit to that, like, the abuse they talk about is not quite on the same level of being equivalent. Like, yeah, okay, I'll give you that white men are really the last group you kind of get a free pass for making fun of. White men are the last group you kind of get a pass for workplace discrimination, though that's changing if you want to look at a recent lawsuit involving the CEO of Yahoo, which I can explain more if you're interested.
Oh, please do. I don't know anything about it.
Basically,
they also own Tumblr.
The CEO of Yahoo was hit with a gender discrimination lawsuit because in the span of maybe 16 months or slightly over a year, Yahoo's senior staff went from, I think, 20% women to 80% women. Like, there were layoffs, and people were hired just because there were women, and supposedly it was provable, and so she was hit with a gender discrimination lawsuit.
Oh my god.
And, that's a good example of, like, okay, but maybe that's not the right way to go about fixing the problem, because now you're just making other problems. But, what I'm getting at is there's a little bit of merit to the logic of, okay, yeah, white men, they're the last group people get a free pass for shitting on or doing whatever, but let's not put it on the same level as black men or black transgender women, okay? Like, let's kind of get real here. Like, yeah, sure, there's plenty of sheltered shitheads in college, like, who are oversensitive, and that goes on both ends of the political spectrum, and there's plenty of people who are asking outrageous bullshit in the name of this or that movement that aligns with the left, but come on. Let's not pretend your grievances are on the same level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Reminds me of Festivus, everyone airing their grievances.
Yeah. Festivus for the rest of us.
Exactly. Best holiday.
It's certainly a fun one.
Yeah. And then feats of strength.
Feats of strength.
A running theme for me is that I'm very non-confrontational, but, like, I keep thinking about, like, doing a real Festivus and, like, really airing grievances at people. And then I think, like, I can never really do it. Like, I can't get those thoughts exposed to people. Like, it's not good.
Yeah, that's... Oh, boy.
I think that's the one part of Festivus that, I mean, like, despite joking about it, that's the one part of Festivus that's really flawed. If you do have a problem with someone, you should just address it immediately. Because otherwise it boils over, and then you need a holiday like Festivus to just, air all your grievances.
Yeah.
You should have a year-round Festivus.
Yeah, and that's one thing. It's not healthy to sit on things like that all the time. Like, it sort of festers in your brain.
Yeah.
But
yeah, J-Doc, any grievances you want to air?
Well, I don't know if he wants to publicly call people out on a radio or on a, like, podcast with a listener base of a handful of people we know and people they know.
Oh, people actually listen to this? Oh, that's exciting.
Some people. Not a lot of people, but some people.
Yeah, that's a story.
Some people.
That's exactly how I like it. Some people. Not a lot of people.
Yeah, I don't know if I
in my creative ventures I've seen I routinely put a lot of things up and out, but I do not promote them at all because I don't actually want anybody to acknowledge that they've seen it.
Yeah. I think
or heard it in this case.
I think all your thumbs up on your Please Cancel Me podcast are, like, I'd argue that 90% of them are from me, if not 100%.
Yeah, pretty much. Oh, I've been uploading these like old radio shows, and they've got like, and I look back through my old thing, and things got like, 5, 7 views. I think a good couple of them were me checking to make sure the video uploaded. But
and then the rest of them are like mom and yaya and all that.
Yeah. I like doing stuff. I like putting it out there, and I could give a shit or not if anybody actually sees it.
That's kind of how I feel as well. Although I will say I do hope we start actually sparking discussion, because like I've said a million times every time we record, I think a lot of this just comes down to a breakdown in communication and empathy.
Yeah, that's true. And it can't just be you and me like over and over again every week, because that's not much of Discourse.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm still working on it, but I have a bad habit of sort of just overpowering discussion. And that's sort of like a bad habit I picked up from my mother, because she's like a New Yorker woman, and so like you put her and her sisters in a room, and like it's almost impossible to get in a word edgewise.
Yeah.
So you have to you gotta
stay on top.
You have to aggressively speak over people and just force your way into the conversation. And it's something I'm a lot better than I used to be, but it's still something I have a long way to go on.
That's great. So, like, your mom is...
I learned something about you today.
So, then your mom is one of those stereotypical, like, New York, like, badass Jewish moms? That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, she's basically a skinny Kyle Broflovsky's mom. I mean, not quite as comically ridiculous,
what?
but...
What?
But, yeah, there's some truth to that stereotype. But she's also just kind of a kick-ass lady. She was a CPA... back when women CPAs were not all that common.
Nice. Trailblazing.
And even more so, her older sister, one of my aunts, is a dentist. And she was a dentist, like, she was like one of the only women in the program, because this was like, I think the 60s or the 70s that she was going to school to be a dentist.
Gosh. That must have been tough. I can only imagine.
Yeah.
They goddamn did it.
And just like listening to people talk about stuff like that is really kind of just, it does kind of make you take a step back and realize how far we've come. I know a lot of people want to say how bad it still is, but compared to where we were, we're actually in a pretty good place. Like, it's a lot better.
Yeah.
And this is where I disagree with a lot of people who will say that, that doesn't mean we need to stop working. But there's certainly
upward momentum.
Yeah, we've come a long way.
Yeah. No, it blows my mind, because our grandmother was, not on the same level as your mother and your aunt. That she wasn't like, trailblazing into male-dominated industries. But I distinctly remember being told about how our mother wanted to do shop class in high school instead of home ec. And at the time, that was just unheard of. Girls go to home ec and learn how to sew and cook.
Obscene.
And, all that nonsense. And boys go to wood shop to, make birdhouses or some dumb shit. I don't know. And my mom was she's just like, I don't want to sew and cook. I want to, like,
you want to do shop class, yeah.
Yeah. And my grandmother
need to weld some wood together, or whatever they do in shop class.
Welding in a shop class? In wood shop? Okay. But our grandmother went to the school board, and she's like, look, my daughter wants to do, wood shop. I don't think it's that big of a deal. Is that okay? And the school board director, the superintendent everyone was on board except for this douche, this guy. He was like, a woman's place is in their kitchen, and certainly not in the wood shop. and just this nonsense, and fought her tooth and nail over it, and then eventually my grandmother thankfully was successful, and now our mother has a very, successful career, not building birdhouses, but, as an attorney. So it's kind of all for naught. But anyway, and this douchebag, when he retired, during his retirement party, apparently his, speech was, he was praised for being this, gender equality trailblazer, and how, he ended the gender segregation between, woodshop and home ec, and totally took credit for all the bullshit that my grandmother went through. Bullshit that was directly caused by him, and it's just, the patriarchy is sick. It's bad. But anyway, my point is, you're absolutely right. Sorry, I went on a tangent, but you're absolutely right. We have come a long way. And just, the idea of, if I were in high school or college, not being able to go to woodshop just because, my junk doesn't match the junk of the other students is just, totally ridiculous to me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of nuts. Because it wasn't that long ago either, really.
No, it wasn't. It's insane.
I think we're sort of reaching a natural end of the conversation. We're
hitting a lull. Killed it.
No, it's fine, because we are now on hour 3. I think we've hit our longest... You didn't kill it.
You let it die peacefully
we've hit our longest recording, actually.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. So I let it die with a rant about feminism instead of a rant about politics. So.
With its dignity,
Yeah.
Without
and
pain.
Actually talking about feminism, it was an interesting moment for me to sort of realize the difference, and I think Andrew put it very well in the last recording. Even though I don't really like the race-based terminology, the difference between quote-unquote white feminism and intersectional feminism.
Oh, it's tragic that there even is a difference.
Where, white feminism is really concerned with, these really silly issues like manspreading, which, as a guy... we spread our legs out a little because we need room to breathe down there. It's nothing against you. And yeah, some people are a little extreme, and that's kind of just being a dick, because there are plenty of people who do that just by putting their shit on other seats.
Yeah.
Playing their speakers out loud on the goddamn subway. Can you believe it?
There are still women getting stoned to death in other countries, and that's kind of where intersectional feminism kind of comes in. And that was an interesting revelation for me. As, the straight white dude who kind of didn't get it for a while.
There's a quote I recently found online that says, you have a moral obligation to be better than the generational standards that you were born into. And just the fact that, as white males, assumingly cisgender and straight, I don't want to assume anything, in the modern American society, that you can, recognize the struggle that, people of other genders and other races and other, creeds have. It's very big of you, and I wish, I feel like the problems that we currently have in our political spectrum would be very much reduced if everyone had that mindset. So, kudos to you guys. Pat on the back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pat, good job. You're absolved of privilege.
I mean, I will say I don't necessarily like intersectionality in all the ways it manifests, because I think we do reach a point sometimes where we're more focused on the delineations between people than as opposed to the commonalities, but maybe I don't have a ton of room to say much there. Who knows? But I don't know. That's a minor gripe in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah. No, I mean, white feminism is a minor gripe in the grand scheme of feminism as a whole. I mean, yeah, manspreading is annoying, and trust me, as someone who frequently commuted on the Seoul subway system, where it's an enormous, I wouldn't say problem, but it's a major occurrence.
Yeah.
It's very easy to spot.
Big ol' inconvenience.
It's minor. It's an annoyance, but it's a minor annoyance, and I think it's all about empathy and being aware of the struggles and perspectives of others.
Well, I would say the same thing about mansplaining, manspreading is just how about we just call it being a shit?
Yeah, you're just being an asshole.
Especially mansplaining, because I see instances, and granted, this is only online, so these are super shallow interactions that are not representative of the movement as a whole, I think. But online mansplaining does get used as sort of a bludgeon to make men feel ashamed for explaining things, even if it was justified. But mansplaining in real life, I'm pretty sure is just people being condescending shitheads all the time. And there's
Yeah,
plenty of people of all genders who are that way.
You can mansplain as a female. It's just like, talking over someone and trying to explain it to them like in a condescending, douchey way.
Right, exactly. And I think the people who would claim it's a slur don't really get that, but
yeah.
It's just dumb. To me, it's a minor issue in my opinion.
I feel like all these things, and in addition to all religions, just boil down to
don't be a dick.
Don't be an asshole.
Yeah, don't be a dick.
Don't be a dick. Like try to practice some empathy. Don't be an asshole.
I should just get like a golden engraved plaque when I can afford it, because I can't right now. I'm living paycheck to paycheck, sort of. That just says, "Don't be a dick," and just like hang it up where everyone can see it.
Yeah, the new golden rule. Don't be a dick.
Yeah, it's like moving away from do unto others as you would have done unto you. Too many words. For the modern era, don't be a dick.
It's amazing how many global problems in so many different forms could be solved if everyone just tried to embody that mentality.
Well, that's one thing that sort of is hard for me to wrap my head around when reading news and looking at like politics and international politics, is like, how much of this is people genuinely thinking that they're doing the right thing, and how much is it like people just being shitty? Because like, you mentioned Trump's cabinet picks, and like you look at the person he picked for his labor secretary or whatever, and this guy's like very clearly, when you look at his viewpoints, he's anti-labor, he opposes raising the minimum wage, he's anti-union, and you kind of gotta wonder, because this guy's like a rich billionaire, like, is this him being self-serving, or does he genuinely believe this will help people?
Well, yeah. To play devil's advocate, Hitler thought he was doing the right thing.
No, and I know that, but trust me, I know that, but it's still an interesting, because so often people argue in bad faith, and that's part of the problem. People always assume bad intent, when I'm more likely to give people the benefit of the doubt and just assume that they're misinformed, or that they genuinely think they're doing the right thing, and they're not, their life experiences or the information they've been given access to doesn't give them the full picture.
Yeah, they're just ignorant as opposed to malicious.
But there are definitely people who are like malicious, and I think this, in recent memory in my life, this is probably the closest I've come to really sitting on that line of being able to say, I'm looking at these people and I genuinely can't tell if this is just pure, like, manipulative self-interest, or if they genuinely think they're doing a good thing. In terms of Trump's cabinet's picks, like these guys who want to end net neutrality, get rid of unions, keep the minimum wage where it is, all that stuff. Betsy DeVos, who thinks private schools will save American education and public schools are terrible. Like, this is probably the most doubt I've ever had as to someone's intentions. As to whether, like, do you genuinely think you're doing a good thing, or are you acting purely out of self-interest?
Yeah. No, it's just amazing. Like, I every time I open, Facebook or, some news site, and I look at, what Trump's doing today, or, what his cabinet picks say or believe, and I'm just like, I swear to God, it's like the universe is trolling me and going against every single thing I believe for and stand for. It's amazing.
Yeah. Well, I will say, speaking about social media, one of the positive things to come out of this is people are, the establishment of politics and the media are starting to, I think, finally acknowledge the power social media has. Unfortunately, they won't let go of Trump's Twitter, but in other ways, I think they're acknowledging the impact it had on this election.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And I've honestly been mulling over the idea of trying to start some sort of online movement to just... I wouldn't know how to pull it off, which is the problem. I'm not a great organizer. I'm better at acting, just as myself. But trying to find a way to get, like, some sort of online campaign to just stop making Trump's tweets the news. Or, like, just straight up ignore his Twitter.
Yeah,
Or I don't know, campaign Twitter to have it taken away from him, because Twitter can do that. It's a private service. Trump doesn't. Trump is being given access to a service by Twitter. They're well within their rights to take it from him, president or not.
I mean, I agree. I think if anyone doesn't deserve a Twitter, it's him for sure.
And I hate to say that because I'm very much against censorship, but I just something has to change between Trump, the relationship between Trump, his Twitter account, and broadcast/online media.
Well, the problem is, even if they were hypothetically to take his Twitter account, he would just go post it on Facebook or Tumblr or Instagram or something.
Right. Well, that's why I said, I wish,
because people would actively seek out, like, well, where is he talking now?
I wish there was a way to get people to boycott Trump's tweets. Like, don't watch news stories that involve his tweets. Don't click on articles with his tweets being a key part of the headline. Like, I don't know. There's got to be a way.
Deprive him of the precious
no, seriously, deprive him of
right.
oppression. He is a ratings man. He is a media man. Deprive him of that attention, and he loses a lot of his forceful power.
Speaking of boycotting and ratings, are you guys going to watch the inauguration coming up? Because what I've been seeing around a lot is, like, not only should you, like, if you don't support him, not only don't watch the inauguration
watch
because
something
he's a ratings
else,
man, and they're going to pay attention to the ratings, but you should turn your TV on to another channel.
Yeah, watch something else.
To like,
what time is the What time is it supposed
redirected.
to be? What time is the inauguration supposed to be?
It doesn't matter. I don't watch live television.
Oh, because neither do I. But I'm especially not going to watch it if I'm at work.
Hang on, I'm googling it now. Let's see. Wow, it just goes all freaking day.
So it's all day. Oh man.
I think it starts at 11:30, if I'm not mistaken. And they have some stuff the day before, but I don't know.
To prolong this especially long podcast even further, speaking of the inauguration, have you guys been watching like this shit show that's been like people boycotting it, like physically deciding not to go, people refusing to perform?
Oh, we talked about this a bit ago. Our Maze and my dad posted something about like a lot of
we mentioned it very
Congress
briefly,
people are refusing to go to the inauguration. Is this like a good thing or is this a bad thing? And I'm like, it seems like some good old like nonviolent resistance to me. That's some good civil disobedience.
What
just
would
like
really,
walk out. It's a walkout.
What would really add some legitimacy to it would be if Republican congressmen also boycotted.
That would be an incredible blow.
Well, because otherwise they're going to write it off as political theater. Yeah. That's what they did when they did like a sit-in at Congress or whatever. With Ray Lewis did something a while back. I'll have to look it up because I don't remember. Do either of you remember reading about this at all?
I don't recall.
Hold on. If you'll grant me a moment.
But I found the inauguration schedule while you're looking at it.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah, go.
It starts at 8:30 a.m. with a private prayer service, and then a coffee date at the White House at 9:30, and then the official swearing-in ceremony begins at 11:30.
Oh,
so I'm going to turn on every single TV in my house to, like, Animal Planet or the Food Network.
Well, actually, I'm pretty sure there are things being broadcast specifically to take attention away from the inauguration, so I would try and find those and watch those if I was
all
watching
day
live TV.
Steven Universe marathon, Cartoon Network. Watch that instead.
Well, no, like I remember seeing something about like Van Jones and Alicia Keys and something doing their own sort of thing.
Yeah, there's some sort of like
there are protest. Yeah, there are protest events going on that I would say, if you're gonna watch something, watch those. But I don't even have a TV hookup in my apartment, so I ain't watching shit. But anyway, yeah, it was a sit-in around sometime in June for gun control, and the Republican Party said, "Oh, this is political theater. This isn't like they're not trying to get anything done. They're just, they're virtue signaling, which is like a new sort of right-wing meme for like you're saying things but you don't mean it or stuff like that." But yeah, I think there would be more legitimacy if, like, they wouldn't be able to say that if Republicans also boycotted. But also, like, there's all these artists and public figures refusing to to go
Oh, I heard
or
they
perform.
couldn't land a Dave Matthews cover band.
Yeah, they couldn't. Well, and then there was that whole
awful.
thing with like the Rockettes, which seemed pretty brutal to me, where like the person who owns the Rockettes was like, no, some of the Rockettes didn't want to perform for Trump because, grab him by the pussy and all sorts of other stuff he's said and done. And like how weird and bizarre is it that you're forcing women to display their bodies to this embodiment of rape culture?
Yeah.
And there are women who didn't want to do that, and the owner of the Rockettes was like, no, you're gonna do it. This is your contract, and I'm making you do this. And it's like, wow, let's just take that creepy rape metaphor further, why don't we?
Yeah. No, it's great. I mean, it's a great example of the positive power of the internet, because enough people bitched about it that they're like, okay, well, if you want to sit out, that's fine.
Yeah, but it's crazy how there's all these people who are just not performing.
I love it.
And not going.
Honestly, I think the only people he got, if I'm not mistaken, is Toby Keith and Three Doors Down, which I didn't even realize Three Doors Down was still a thing.
I didn't realize they were still a band. Yeah, I thought have they put anything out in the last few years?
I thought they died in like the mid 2000s.
It's gonna be 3 branches down when we overthrow the federal government.
Oh God.
Exactly.
What up?
Oh, jeez.
Okay.
Well, can't wait to look at the YouTube or not YouTube, like Tumblr GIFs and reactions and people making posts about it on that day instead of actually watching it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Do you think you can pirate it? Like, if you want to watch it, but you want to like,
I'm absolutely positive that there will be a way to like stream it online or torrent it in a way that doesn't.
In a way that somehow like instead of not even giving like whatever point the ratings use on the TV, like.
Oh yeah, well
somehow,
when I said stream, there's all sorts of sites that will like just rip whole broadcasts and just put them online for people to watch, and that doesn't get reflected in ratings or any sort of anything because it's technically like completely unaffiliated with the broadcaster and legally dubious.
Yeah.
So there'll be ways to watch it if you really want to watch it. But okay,
I don't really want to watch it.
We're on like 3.5 hours, so I'm gonna just say we're done. This was a really long, somewhat Debbie Downer of an episode, but it sort of picked up.
My clock is showing me 2:18. We really broke 3 hours from your end.
We started at like 9:30 my time, I think. It's 11. It's 11:54 where I am.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Let's see.
We did it.
We did it. All right. Thank everybody for listening once again to the Open Discourse. I've been Jay. I've been here with Dave as always, and my lovely sister May.
Oh, thanks.
And
hit us up. Wait, hit us.
Oh
hit
yeah.
us up at open-discourse.com and facebook.com/opendiscourse. If we are, well, I guess I can't plug the YouTube channel because if you're listening to this, it's probably on the YouTube channel Open Discourse.
Yeah, that's what we've been going with.
Like, comment, subscribe, keep it locked in the comments.
And I promise I will update the website and have all these on there by the time this goes up. And if it's not, you're welcome to crucify me on social media.
Yeah.
Well, no, because it's on the YouTube channel, but it's not. I haven't touched the website for a while because life has been happening. But
yeah, it's one of the hardest things to do as a creative on the internet is live.
Yeah, I mean, I will say though, speaking to the mental health thing, and I promise we're gonna end it. But for me, one of the things that brings me out of my funks is like creating things and being on a schedule. And so this was a good step for me. But yeah. We're done. It's over.
The action. This is a cathartic action for us. Thank you everybody for listening.
Recording is over.